America must decide in this and immediate future elections whether she will live or die. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Now, have I got your attention now? That's right. America is, in fact, suffering from an illness that plagues every civilization sooner or later. Sadly, this illness usually proves terminal. It happened to the Roman Empire in 454 and the Byzantine Empire in 1453. But the enemies of civilization are getting desperate, and that desperation alone shows how American civilization can come back. Before I tell you how in detail, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, including this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, "Thanks for the free trial of communism, but I'd like to cancel." Remember that. I'm going to bring it up later. Now, one more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. And one more thing. Do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click on that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do. Now, just give me a moment here. Now, the desperation of the enemies of American civilization shows up in two reports that I received over the last 24 hours. First, we hear from CNN that Barack Obama is not going to campaign actively in midterms anymore. He says he wants to focus more on a new foundation that bears his name and on something called a democracy forum. Now, what he really wants to avoid is the humiliation of endorsing candidates who will go down to defeat. If he genuinely thought those candidates could win by any means, fair or foul, he would campaign. But he won't, and that alone is further proof that the enemies of civilization whom he represents have lost their baseline, and he knows it. He goes so far, as do his Democratic Party friends, as to say that democracy itself is under threat. Well, let's examine that statement critically. Whoever makes it doesn't realize or wants Americans to forget that America is not a democracy. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner. And furthermore, democracy inevitably falls apart and leads to, in worst case, to oligarchy. That is how Obama acts and thinks, as an oligarch. So when he says democracy is under threat, he's admitting that people won't obey him anymore. Meaning, we won't obey him anymore. Why we won't obey him anymore goes to why I call him an enemy of American civilization. Because we also have a transcript of an executive session that took place in Copenhagen after their democracy summit that they held in June. The summary of that transcript comes from a fellow by the name of Eric Thompson at a website by the name of Finish the Race. To a small group of fellow globalists, he allegedly said, and I quote, "Sometimes it just turns out that they're mean, they're racist, they're sexist, they're angry. And your job is then to just beat them because they're not persuadable." Unquote, Barack Obama. Now, just to be clear, because I don't do false or exaggerated accusations, when Obama says beat, he means defeat electorally. That is, if he doesn't mean to defeat in some other way, like, for example, by bringing false charges calculated to disqualify someone from seeking office. The FBI is trying to do that to Donald Trump after the Democrats in Congress tried to disqualify him on impeachment for and conviction of an offense tantamount to treason. But they failed because they didn't have 2/3 of the Senate to vote along with the House. Now, mean, racist, sexist. All those adjectives come from critical theory, which is a classic Marxist attack on any civilization with a view to replacing it. But notice that he says we are not persuadable. That means he cannot persuade us. The CNN report said that he once hoped he could. No more. How else to interpret this evaluation of him? His pitch is a more dispirited take on the hopeful pitch he used to make. That democratic ideas are more popular and that the more people who vote, the better democratic candidates will do. Unquote CNN. Wrap your minds around that statement, ladies and gentlemen. He actually thought he could make socialism or communism palatable. Well, it didn't work out that way, did it? Remember, thanks for the free trial of communism, but I'd like to cancel. And we are the people he's calling mean and all those other things he said. Actually, Obama gave more details a week and a half ago. Again, according to Dan Marica at CNN. Much of what he said then at a fundraiser in San Francisco is not worth mentioning, but this excerpt from Mr. Marica's piece is, quote, Obama argued in San Francisco that elections in the United States and around the world extend beyond any particular issue and are actually a contest between those of us who believe in a vision of society in which each individual is treated with equal worth and equal dignity, and an opposing side that has everything to do with tribe and race and sect and power and violence. Unquote Dan Marica, occasionally quoting Barack Obama. Now, did Obama really think that he could sell the notion that globalism is about treating each individual with equal worth and equal dignity? No, sir. Globalism is about a handful of the wealthiest people in the world creating one government which they can control. Everything else Obama says about tribe and race, that's more critical theory. But when he mentions the word S-E-C-T, sect, now he's talking about the one philosophical force that threatens globalism to the core. That force is Christianity. Christianity does urge its followers to treat each individual with equal worth and equal dignity. Thomas Jefferson echoed that in the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, he said. Obama doesn't believe that. His program was about organized theft and embracing globalism. He has allied himself with bigger thieves. Which brings me to the second report that came out early this morning. Before I get into it, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel that you're working harder for your money just to get by? You're not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of certain business opportunities that this company provides, details at oursilverlines.com. They can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, Mr. Eric Woods Erickson, who is not one of my favorite pundits, tends to put blinders on and still doesn't quite understand what he's looking at. When he does look, nevertheless, identified another attack on American civilization. He might not recognize that for what it is, but he does see it as a source of conflict. And he also knows that the Democrats, who are simpatical with it, are making a mistake. To be specific, he sees pregnancy centers, which are the Christian answer to, well, pregnancy ending centers coming under physical attack. Happily, he describes the pregnancy centers accurately for what they do and don't do for the women who come to them. But to the political left, they are somehow engaging in fraud, precisely because they will not end a pregnancy, and most of them will tell the woman not to. So we hear of Democratic Party office holders actually saying the law should not allow them to exist. And this is typical of the left. Certain people, you know the type, they were the school bullies. They take that matter to their own hands. They spray paint obscene slogans, they break windows, they throw firebombs, and sometimes they threaten the staff with murder. Yet the FBI refuses to investigate, saying this is a local law enforcement matter. But they do investigate anyone who protests outside the other kind of clinic, the one that ends young lives. In fact, they break down doors and scare families half out of their wits, charging violation of a law that is itself selective. Freedom of access to clinic entrances? Where do the pregnancy centers go for freedom of access to their entrances? Mr. Erickson didn't make that point, but it would have been right down the line with the points he did make. Here's the thing. Mr. Erickson sees this as radicalizing. What he doesn't see is what the physical attacks and this selective application of the law represent. Childbearing and child rearing are the engine of civilization. Everyone eventually dies. So the members of a civilization must raise up new generations and pass along their values to them. The enemies of civilization, meaning the globalists, know this. That's why they support anything and everything that discourages childbearing and child rearing. That includes the right to end a pregnancy at any time for any reason or no reason. The globalists had one complete success among the countries over which they now hold sway, the United States of America. The decision in Jane Roe versus Henry Wade, 1973, made America the most permissive country on earth in this regard. Then came Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization this year, and that erased that success. The attacks on pregnancy centers date from that decision, and that cannot be a coincidence, nor can anyone of good heart excuse those attacks. More than that, the selective application and writing of the law can have one motive only: to prevent childbearing. Remember Representative AOC lamenting that we're not having kids? Well, she was really lamenting that those on her side are not having kids, but we are. So forget her lament. It's totally insincere. Otherwise, you would never sign on to a bill that codifies the right, even the expectation of ending a pregnancy anytime a woman wishes, or her social circle tells her to. The enemies of civilization must take such drastic measures. They've already lost. They've lost because enough of us have discovered the false lessons the globalists have been teaching our children. But to make sure they lose, we must actively embrace Christian precepts of government and law. Complacency is never appropriate and is an ever-present hazard. In fact, complacency kills civilizations. Rome grew in numbers and strength as long as Rome remembered that she had adversaries. Beginning with Emperor Commodus, Rome forgot that. So Rome's people gave themselves over to the pleasures of the flesh. With the result, we all know. Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire in 8 volumes. Today, the globalists promote the pleasures of the flesh and anything else that stalls the engine and weakens the structure of civilization. Now, they got away with this because too many people consider them part of civilization. They're not. And we know it. Donald Trump was the first president in recent memory to remind us. The challenge is they now know we know. Hence Barack Obama's lament that democracy is under threat. Hence also the deliberate provocation of the pregnancy center attacks. But again, these are desperate acts by a losing side. Now we must press our advantage and look beyond the election. The future belongs to us, so long as we do not lose sight of it. A link in the description to the article and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlives.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link and links to other videos I've already done on this and related subjects. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.